Despite all the negative reception, why did I buy a PlayStation Classic in 2019? Because I saw one for $30 at Best Buy, thought it would be pretty cool to own a small form factor PS1 with two authentic USB controllers, and I could easily modify it to put my own games. So that there was the too long, didn't read version of this video, but yeah, the PS1 is one of my favorite consoles of all time. I had talked about this when the PS Classic was first announced. We saw the lineup of games and went, oh, in mid-2019, you can get one of these not only for 30 bucks. I got this one for 30. I have seen it for as little as $25 at Best Buy, at Amazon, and it is the most depressing thing to see because think about the potential that this thing had. When you think about the NES and the Super Nintendo Classic, then you saw this and went, man, this could be a hell of an RPG machine, of an action machine. There's so many great games, but it feels like when you look at the back of the box and you see games like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, the first thing that should go to your head is, why? It almost seemed like Sony tried to capitalize on the Super Nintendo Classic, but didn't realize what made it so good. It wasn't just the box, which yeah, when you look at this, it's great. It's not just the small form factor, which once again, great. And it's not even about the emulation, which when you look at this one, the fact that some of the games ran a little bit worse because they were PAL and not NTSC, but with the power of having a keyboard, with the power of some light modifications, you can easily adjust all that. So the potential is there, the hardware is there, but I think the passion on behalf of Sony was simply not there, which I think is not that great because if they ever want to work on a PS2 Classic, which I really hope they work on, I think people are going to be incredibly skeptical, and you and me, I think we have to be part of that bunch. But going back to the question of why did I buy a PlayStation Classic in 2019, the real answer is that not only was it cheap when I saw it, I also saw the potential of having those two original-like PS1 controllers that I could use with my RetroPie. I have an arcade gaming machine here at our home, and we play a lot of arcade games, but it can also emulate PS1. So the fact that I could use these authentic stock controllers into that was a pretty big deal, and in addition, I saw how easy it was to modify this thing. I went to it thinking it's going to take hours upon hours, but no, you just pop in a USB stick, you add some files, you go back and forth a couple of times, and you can add a massive library of games. I think it does have some power problems, like if you add over 80 games, I've seen people report that it can lead to some consoles being shut down or them overheating, but I have successfully modified my PlayStation 1 Classic, and I did add a couple of games to it, including WWF SmackDown 2, which is one of my favorite wrestling games of all time, because I see the potential of having this be my modified, my custom PlayStation Classic, not a generic one, not a general one, but the Juan PlayStation Classic. So I'm not going to be adding hundreds upon hundreds of games into my own version. The goal is to make it my own experience, that say you come to our home and you pop this in, you see that there's a USB stick, and you put it on, every game that you see in that collection, with the addition of the games that are pre-installed, I can tell you, this is the game that I first played when I got the console, the original PS1. This was my first RPG. It's all about making sure that my PlayStation Classic is a celebration of not just the PlayStation 1, but my PlayStation 1, the one that I used to love to play growing up, and now I can have it in a small form factor, which once again, I know that I already have a Raspberry Pi with RetroPie installed, so theoretically, there's no reason to get this other than pure nostalgia. But isn't that part of gaming nowadays? We're getting remasters, re-releases. That all lies on this right here, our heart, our passion, our nostalgia. And there truly is something beautiful about having something like this. This is a really bad example, but having this as part of your collection and knowing that no matter how much time goes by, we can talk about the 4K games, we can talk about ray tracing, but going back to the smudgy days of early 3D graphics to sprite-based games on something like the Super Nintendo truly is special to me, and I do that to this day. Even this channel, when you look at the previous videos, I've talked about games like Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled on the PS4, but that is a remaster of a PlayStation 1 classic that I played earlier in the year, And it was still awesome to play, not for the sake of nostalgia, but because when you go back to the PS1 and other consoles of that time, we got incredible gaming classics that I absolutely feel should have been part of this console. Not just talking about Crash Team Racing. Another one that I was very surprised to not see be included is Street Fighter Alpha 3. I'm not like this huge fighting game guy. I love Tekken 3, so really they got one of my favorite games already included in the bunch. But I feel like Street Fighter Alpha 3 was not only beautiful to play, but I love the style, I love the menus, the massive roster, and you could have tied that in together with Super Puzzle Fighter, which is already included into the PlayStation Classic, one of my favorite puzzle games of all time. I love Tetris, but I'm bad at it. I feel like Puzzle Fighter, I like it, and I'm actually good at it, which if you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, you know that I really gotta soak in the times where I'm actually good at a video game for once. And we got the first Resident Evil on the PlayStation Classic, but I feel like they could have taken it to the next level with Resident Evil 2, and in addition to that, adding the first Silent Hill game, which I played very little of growing up because I think I rented it one time. I saw the fog in the gameplay, I got too scared, shut it off, and went right back to Blockbuster. May that rest in peace. But I think having both of them would have been cool because I feel like it's almost like the console war, but you have the horror game war where people like Resident Evil over Silent Hill and vice versa. So what if you put both in this console together so that way the Resident Evil fans get a chance to experience Silent Hill, and I think that would have been really fun. And I know there's no way this game could have been part of it because of licensing, but when you talk about the PlayStation 1, you have to talk about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which actually beat a couple of months ago, and it's still awesome. Arguably, you could say maybe Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 or 4 were better games, but when you think about the context of the maps, the incredible soundtrack, the memorable gameplay that still holds up, if you're calling this a PlayStation classic, you gotta add the true classics like your Gran Turismo and your Tony Hawk, but because of licensing, I think that whenever we go back down memory lane, it's always going to be difficult to include a couple of these games because they're not going to be cheap for the company, and in turn, we may have to pay more to get these. Although, if it would have cost $20 more, although it would have been like $120, actually, no. Never mind, Sony, you're not even watching this, but even if you were, I'm not going to pay more because, I paid $30 for this one, and even then, I had to like look at the box and go, I don't need it, but I want it. And perhaps the most awesome reason as to why I wanted to get a PlayStation Classic in 2019 is that my wife and I are both turning 30 years old this year, and not just that, collectively we will have been married for 5 years by December. So we realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of really cool things happening. So what can we do that is a little bit out of the traditional comfort zone of celebrating a birthday? And we decided to do a 90s themed birthday party talking about video games, movies, music, and things like that. So we got DJs, we got a food menu that celebrates the 90s, but we're actually going to have a video game corner with 2 arcade machines, a modified Super Nintendo Classic, and the modified PlayStation Classic. And obviously we're not doing this in our home, we even rented out a place to do this because I'm looking at a CRT TV right now, and I bought 2 of them recently for $30. So the 2 TVs that you're looking at right now, I went to Salvation Army and they were looking at me like, why in the hell would somebody buy this now? Not only will I have these televisions, I'm hoping to buy an HDMI to composite converter so I can purposely make the consoles look bad. I'm having so much fun that I think part of my birthday is just going to be sitting in a corner waiting for people to react to them just seeing like, why? Look at this TV. That television right there, you have no idea how heavy that is. And I live on an apartment on a 2nd floor. Now the challenge is going to be, how the hell am I going to get it back down? But luckily the place that we're celebrating at is going to be pretty close. But rest assured, you're going to be seeing pictures of this, and I hope that it really works out. I have this idea in my head, but I think that the idea versus the execution can always change. But I think it's nice when you do something that I know people are going to remember. So whether it be a birthday, whether it be a wedding, whatever you're planning on for the future, think about a very specific moment in your life that meant a lot to you, whether it be a decade, whether it be a year, whether it be a movie or something, because that's why I thought about the 90s. The 90s were when I fell in love with video games, when I fell in love with movies. Most of my favorite video games of all time not only came out on the PS1, but they did come out in the 90s. So that's why I bought a PlayStation Classic in 2019. I'm still thinking about whether I want to eventually gut it out and maybe install a Raspberry Pi into it. I have seen people do that because it's a little bit more accessible. There's a lot more support for the Raspberry Pi, but I think I'm going to keep it light. I'm going to keep it simple because after the birthday, I'm going to be, what the hell am I going to do with all that? Right now, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with these televisions after the birthday, but one step at a time. That's going to be happening in September. But let me know what you thought about this video, and if there's another particular topic celebrating nostalgia, the 90s, the early 2000s, that you would like me to cover on the channel, and I can most definitely do that because I think I could talk about the 90s for hours upon hours. But if you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that notifications bell, and check out the previous videos that I have available, including the Wii U. I feel like as people keep looking forward to the future with Xbox Scarlet and everything else, I'm just looking back to the past, not only because it's cheaper, it's honestly cooler. Once again, it touches this thing right here, which is our heart. So up until next time, thank you for watching and supporting, and take care, everybody.